G'day, I'm just here. This seems really weird just to be sitting in front of this little eyeball here, but this is the second of 4 little segments that I wanted to put together just to give my basic download on the things that we should be addressing, in my view. Just my view, mind you. I have a view like other people do, and so I'm offering that not because I think I'm a guru, but because I have a view. And because I'm compassionate, I'm passionate, and I hope passionate about worship. So, and I'm not satisfied with our worship, our collective worship experience. We have a mildly disabled worship experience. Occasionally we have good worship, but any worship leader, I think, would realise here that somehow the worship is just a little hard to grab. And so I'm just putting some things here that I think about when I think about that. And the first one was to think about worship as a journey. So the leader is leading on a journey. Moses, they're in Egypt, now they're in the wilderness, now we've got to get them into the promised land. I think that's the idea of how worship works. Now the second one this time I want to talk about is this idea of thinking about worship, or what I would call a three-nation awareness. Three-nation awareness. This sounds a bit funny, and I'll try and explain. Because I think when it comes to a room full of people, or a room with people in it, realising that when we start worship, sometimes it's a very small group of people here, but there are, in my view, 3 categories of people in that room. First of all, there is a smaller group, lesser number of people, who are going to worship if you tell them to, if you tell them not to, if you make it hard for them, they'll still worship God because they are passionate worshippers. They're not, given to thinking about what's going on around them. They want to worship God. They've overcome their, whatever the things there are that stop them, make them self-conscious, and they just love worshiping God. And so, you put up a song, no matter what it is, they'll worship God with it. And they're amazing people, and they're wonderful, and they're encouraging for every worship leader. And every worship leader wishes the whole room were full of those people. And when you go to a conference, generally speaking, those people are at the conference. And so that's why you go to a conference and you have this amazing worship, and you come back and think, what's going on? You don't have to worry about those people, because whatever you do, they're going to be there. Like this is me. When I don't know the song, I just sing in tongues. I don't have to have the words, or I don't care if I know the words. I don't really care if I know the tune or not the tune. I can worship God regardless of all that. So, I'm not a good measure of a worship leadership performance, because if you're the worst leader in the world, I'm still going to worship God. You might make it hard. You might make it harder for me to do that, but I'll still worship God because in me is this heart to worship. The second group of people are the people who want to worship but have to journey in that way. They have to be encouraged and have to be facilitated. It's like anything where leadership needs to be facilitated. If you go on a tour to somewhere, the tour leader isn't necessarily the most academically brilliant, the most learned in every way, but they just simply know their way around, and they can take you from here to there. They know what here looks like, they know what the way to there looks like, and they know what there looks like, and they know when you get there that they're there. So that's what a leader is like. And so if people want to go the journey, there are a group of people who want to go the journey, but sometimes they take more encouragement than others. And so you have to provide a kind of encouragement. The third group, that's the larger group. Out of these 3 nations, that's the largest nation. The nation who, yes, they will worship, but they won't just do it like the passionate, smaller number. They will worship if they're encouraged and given a good opportunity. Even Stephen odds. Then there are a small group of people who, are almost going to defy you to involve them in worship. And they've made a decision not to worship. The first group have made a decision to worship. no matter what. The second group have made a decision to worship if the song's right, if the leader's right, if the environment is right, and a whole bunch of ifs, but they're willing to go there, and there's a range of people in that group. The third group are stolidly sitting there defying you to get them to worship, and so you don't want to measure much by them, because they're not, you may snare a few of those, but you're not there to convince somebody or manipulate somebody against their will. You're there to provide leadership. That's an offer. It's an invitation to the journey. It isn't a coercion. And if you make it coercion, or if you make it manipulation or hype, then you'll do something. You won't produce anything worthwhile. So if you think about these three, I reckon you ought to pitch your worship to the back end of the second nation. If you think of First Nation here, worshippers, second nation, larger group, third nation are the backseat dwellers, then the backseat dwellers, if you try and pitch to them, you may lose everything. If you just pitch to the front, then you'll lose the middle. You want to pitch to the back of the middle. And so here's what I think you can do. When you start to think about your worship leading experience, especially in the planning stage, think about those people who are willing to worship, but they're not necessarily going to run and jump at it. You need to help them. So provide help. Just provide honest help in your planning. Plan according to an anticipation that if you offer people a way in that's clear and understandable, that they can take that journey, and you made some steps for them, you haven't made it a jump, leap 6 feet, or any superhuman event, you simply made it, everyone can get there. Then if you make worship so that everyone in the room can get there if they choose, that's a good thing to do. If you find that people aren't, we're going to talk about this in the next one, but if it's not happening, then you need to inspire and encourage. I don't mean manipulate. I don't mean hype. I mean inspire and encourage. Add encouragement if you need it. Read the situation. Read what's going on. Think of this in the planning. Think of that back half of the second nation in your planning, and then be attuned to that. Don't do your worship leading like as if the stage is the only thing that matters. Think about what's going on at the back of the second group, the second nation. And remember that you have more options than just going through your list of songs. You can have a prayer option, you can read a Bible verse, you can share a little testimony, providing that you don't just sort of end up with a whole bunch of words and put everyone off that way. So you can encourage people that want to worship, say, by encouraging them to enter in and by reading. And so you can get a prophetic revelation about worship. You can wait on the Lord and have something to say that precipitates worship, a prophetic statement. You can open the floor to prophetic gifts to lift people into worship. And as you do this, you need to think about how you respond to that, not just, have your prophetic word and then get on with it sort of thing. So here it is, the three nations. Learn to read the nations and learn to pitch to the back end of the second nation.